vessels free. You can find it anywhere. Yes, the future's been sold every night we're gone. And some karaoke songs. How we like to sing along, though the words are wrong. It really, really, really could happen. Yes, it really, really, really could happen. When the days they seem to fall through you were just...
Have you ever noticed the similarities between well-known fairy tales and the Bible? It's simply amazing how this ancient book seems to parallel magical fantasy and fiction fairy tale books. Just for fun, I thought I'd compare a few of the similarities. Let's start with the talking snake in the Garden of Eden. In the Bible, the talking snake tempts Adam and Eve to eat from the forbidden fruit. Can you guess what other fantasy story has the talking snake?
Thanks.
That's right, if you guessed Harry Potter, you were correct. Let's play another. In the Bible, Jonah lives inside of a whale. Some Christians say it's a big fish, others will say it's a whale. So I'll just use whale. Anyways, Jonah lives inside the stomach for 3 days. What other well-known fantasy story has someone living inside of a whale? The answer is Pinocchio. Just like Jonah, Geppetto lives inside of a giant whale, and its name is Monstro, and of course he survives as well. It's quite amazing. I found a small anole lizard. Hopefully I can get him on camera without scaring him. You see him there, the green lizard? Oh. We have a lot of those around here. They're everywhere. Oh, he left.
There was a period of time when I was 13 or 14 that I was fairly convinced that at any point in the night, aliens were going to take me on board their ship, anally probe me, and then erase my mind and put me back into bed. Yep, I believed in alien abductions. There are groups of people who live in the United States that claim that they have had memories brought back up through hypnotic suggestion, that they have been kidnapped by aliens, experimented on, and then brought back to Earth. Some of these people even claim that they have been like tagged with like little pieces of metal and whatnot, and that they're being watched by aliens. Now, as an adult, I realize that this is craziness, and I look at it this way. If you've ever watched one of these documentary programs in which people are saying that they've been abducted, it's kind of interesting that how they describe the reasons behind the abduction. They're usually some sort of reproductive experiment, and at some point they always say that the aliens let them know that they were specially chosen for the abduction and experimentation. In other words, the people who are imagining that this has actually happened to them are basically doing it to put themselves into a special category. Not only are they a victim, but they're also specially chosen to meet aliens from another planet and be experimented on. So they're part victim and part elite group. It's quite a combination.
In these blogs, I'll be talking a lot about what I believe. I think we might as well get the ball rolling with my attitudes on religion, specifically the Judeo-Christian religion for now. The way I see it, there are two broad points of view with a lot of variation and striations within the two. The first view is that the Bible is the revealed Word of God, and the second is that the Bible is just a propaganda tool full of made-up stories and vague threats. I happen to be an adherent to the second school of thought, but for now, let's examine the first. People who believe that the Bible is the revealed Word of God also fall into two fairly large subsets. Either they believe the words of the Bible should be taken literally, or they think it's a lot of analogy and guidance, kind of like a fabulist wrote it, the Bible a la Aesop, if you will. The first group, the ones who insist that it should all be taken literally, have a name. They're called fundamentalists. Fundamentalists think that every event described in the Bible, every red-letter sentence spoken by God or Jesus, actually happened in reality. They believe that God created the heavens and the earth and all of the things living on it in 6 literal 24-hour days. Although sometimes the fundamentalists will point out that there is a passage where God has his own definition of what constitutes a day in his purview. Additionally, they believe that the earth is less than 6,000 years old. They base this on the fact that the Bible contains a generation-by-generation line of lineage from the beginning of days to the birth of Christ, and that the lifespans of all the people mentioned in that lineage are given. Add them all up, and within a few years, you know the age of the planet. The problem is that believing this means that you cannot believe scientists when they tell us that the earth is several billion years old.
Man is truly a unique animal. To our knowledge, no other species on this planet has had the ability to question their place or how they got on this earth. For thousands of years, man has looked at the heavens and wondered why he is here. Man has created religions to try to answer these questions, before he was technologically advanced enough to discover the answer to these questions for himself. There have been countless religions around the world throughout the history of mankind, not just to explain why or how we got here, but to explain things in the natural world that exceeded our comprehension. However, we live in an extraordinary time where mankind's intelligence is exploding. Not only do we have the capacity to understand how the natural world works, we also understand how we got here for the most part. So it seems rather silly that now, when we live in a time where we can collide subatomic particles to try to recreate the Big Bang, does our species still cling to superstitions created at a time where man's greatest technological achievement was the plow? The Wright brothers first invented the way for man to fly under powered flight in 1903. A mere 66 years later, in 1969, mankind made a huge leap into the cosmos and landed on another celestial body.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
In the last 100 years alone, mankind has made more discoveries and expanded their knowledge more than the species was able to do in the preceding 1,000 or more years.
Hello everybody, I would like to ask you who is more fascist in this case. Now, of all the people that have blocked me, and all of the people I have trolled a lot of Nazis, and only one of them has blocked me. Of all the Nazis that I trolled, one blocked me, and he was a Nazi Christian. And of all the Christians that I criticized, all of them blocked me, except 2. One's Forgiven Now Free, and Frick's Voice. So, I would like to ask you, who is more fascist? The Nazis. I troll them, I use a lot of cuss words against them, and none of them have blocked me, except 1. The Christians, I don't cuss with them at all, and they have all blocked me, except 2. And most Nazis, they don't have their comments pending approval or friend only comments on their channel or videos. The Nazis enable comments and ratings. So I ask you, who is more fascist?
Greetings, Youtubians, and welcome once more to the House of McNuts. Here's an interesting thing. Less than 50% of Americans can name the 4 Christian Gospels. And that same number, that same dismal statistic describes how many know that the Quran is Islam's holy book, or how many know that Martin Luther started the Protestant Reformation. Now you'd think that a lot of Protestants would know that, but they don't. In other polls, this is not a this is an earlier Pew poll, not the most recent one. They discovered that fully one third of Americans believe that Billy Graham delivered the Sermon on the Mount. Billy Graham? And 1 in 5 believed that Sodom and Gomorrah were a married couple. Now, this is funny, but it's not funny. It's also really tragic, and it points out to the danger, I believe, that America is in because of the religious right. What you're learning here is that there's a country, I shouldn't say we, I don't live there anymore. There's a country, a huge country, that claims 85% of its citizens are Christian. And yet, the overwhelming majority of those Christians, including the ones who go to church on a regular basis, have not actually read the Bible. Something like 70 or 75% of Americans claim that they actually try to live their life according to this book they have never read. Now, in the short time that I've been on YouTube, the few exchanges that I have had with fundamentalist Christians have shocked me. I mean, totally surprised me at how little they actually knew about the book. They simply hadn't read it, and they'd certainly never actually studied it. They can throw a lot of quotes around, but they don't actually read it, they don't actually study it. They let other people tell them what is supposedly in the book. This is dangerous. This is dangerous, ugly stuff. Come on, Christians, get with it. Read your damned book. You really need to.
One thing I've always had a major issue with is when someone exaggerates their credentials in a specific area. I was a general manager of a fast food restaurant for a while, but that doesn't mean that I could run an entire fast food corporation, and I never fooled myself into thinking that I could. Unfortunately, many creationists who might have a degree or a PhD in some field like to imply that alone makes them an expert on all sorts of subjects, like evolution. And it seems as though just the normal everyday creationists like to believe that to be the case. One little game that I like to play is called Catch the Unrelated Degree. It's fun, and if you're into drinking, you can make it into quite the little party with your skeptic friends. And if you're in the mood to get completely shit-faced, there are a few things that'll get you there faster. Take the Peanut Butter Man. He's an engineer and an author. Those two things somehow gave him the know-how to discover something that biologists have been unaware of for years. Peanut butter disproves evolution. Of course, this video wouldn't be complete without Kent Hovind, whose PhD in Christian education or something makes him an expert in evolution, astrophysics and cosmology, chemistry, geology, and so on. The reason why this upsets me is because it's lying. He is purposely letting people, through either direct or indirect ways, believe that he's an expert on these subjects. And the only thing I could really ever trust him with is to produce a poorly written thesis. But what upsets me more than most of those things are the people who have degrees in areas that are actually relevant to what they're discussing, and yet they still manage to distort the facts to fit their worldview. Jason Lyle, someone who writes for Answers in Genesis, actually has a degree in astrophysics. And yet, during a lecture, he manages to totally mislead an audience of creationists by saying that secular astronomers think that light traveled 78 billion light years in 13.7 billion years.
Hi, the Mudbrooker here. I've been thinking about creationism this morning, specifically young Earth creationism. To my mind, one of the biggest problems with the creationist doctrine is that it defies the very nature of creativity itself. As anybody with even the slightest amount of creativity can tell you, the joy of creation is not in the final product, it's in the process of creation itself. Whether it's art or architecture, music, or making YouTube videos, the pleasure comes from taking an abstract thought and giving it form. Even if you're pleased with the final result, it's really just a side effect of the process. Now, according to the creationists, the ultimate being performed the ultimate act of creativity. Nowhere does he pause to enjoy the wondrous creation taking form under his hands. In fact, the story that the Bible relates and the creationist would have you believe is nothing more than a boring, repetitious tale of some guy standing there banging out a product as fast as he can, saying, "Yeah, that's done, it's good. Yeah, that's done. It's good. This is not a tale of creativity. This is a story of boring, mindless, assembly line work. By proclaiming this story to be true, the creationist reduces his God to nothing more than a celestial version of Henry Ford.
If I may be so bold, I would like to suggest that there exists a pair of words which beautifully illustrates the difference between atheist and theist mindsets. These words are to respect and to worship. How many times have we heard creationists, as a last resort, proclaim that we evolutionists just worship Darwin or Dawkins? Too often. Of course, even a most superficial glance into what word worship entails reveals the absurdity of this statement. At least, I personally don't sing hymns to praise the almighty Darwin, and when I'm sick, I don't pray for Richard Dawkins to heal me. I go to a hospital. The word they are looking for is to respect. Concept that seems pretty alien to them. If I respect someone, it means that either they have qualities which I find good and positive, or they think and act in a way which I consider admirable. For example, I respect Richard Dawkins for his intelligence and his elegance as a speaker. However, that doesn't stop me from disagreeing with him if I need to, for example about his meme theory. With many religions it's the exact opposite. Let's take for example Christianity. Even though in the New Testament Jesus clearly commands his disciples to kill anyone who doesn't believe in him, Christians still like to pretend that Jesus is the epitome of goodness and mercy. Worshipping someone entails the incapability of admitting that there might be some flaws in the object of the worship. When we say that we respect someone, we acknowledge that they are merely human. Like all of us, they are fallible, prejudiced, sometimes dogmatic. Sadly, true perfection is found nowhere but in fairy tales. Let me end by saying that I don't want to paint a false dichotomy here. Of course, there are religious people who don't just blindly obey whatever god they may believe in, and there are atheists who don't seem to have any problem with blind hero worship. Thank you for watching and have a great day.